Wild ones, it's Bernadette. I am the creator and channel of the Arcana Tarot and Oracle deck, as well as the publisher and creator of whatismyspiritanimal.com, buildingbeautifulsouls.com, and wisewitchesandwitchcraft.com. And I am here today and through all of the tarot card reading, tarot card meaning video series that we are doing with my beautiful goddess soul sister. She's just everything in the whole world to me. Her name is Dana Winter. She is a master tarot reader. I even wish there was a word that was bigger than master tarot reader to talk about what this woman can do with any tarot deck you hand her. It's truly unbelievable. And Dana is also an award-winning author. Dana, your books with Schiffer Publishing are?
Wicca, What's the Real Deal? Sacred Objects Take Sacred Space, and the Esoteric Dream Book. The Dream Book's a little bit different than the other two. It's one for the larger crowd, but those are the three books so far. Some things are in the works.
Cool. Okay. And so today's tarot card reading video is finishing out our series of the Minor Arcana. And it has always been my favorite suit in the deck. Who knows, just because it means, for me, it's always meant prosperity and good news and abundance and really reaping what you sow. And just for me from childhood, my mom always taught me that, and it has held me in awfully good stead when I wanted to achieve something. But the overall meaning of the Suit of Pentacles, how do you see that, Dana? Why don't you maybe take a second and describe, what is a pentacle? Let's start with that. A lot of people won't even know what a pentacle is. So what is a pentacle?
Well, I've got an image of one here. This is something that I could use to represent a pentacle. Sometimes you can wear them as a talisman, or actually talisman you carry, amulets you wear. But this is by Paul Borda. Got to give credit where credit's due. It's beautiful. And along the side, it has some writing that says, I am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon among the stars. So it really is kind of a representation. It makes you think of as above, so below, or, the divine coursing through all things. And really that is what the pentacle represents. All things, the essence of all things. It's the spirit of all things, and it represents spirit. It's got 5 points, each of them representing a cardinal direction, an element, a season, and other correspondences that go along with each of those elements. And the 5th point is the representation of spirit. If you've ever seen Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvius Man, where the man is standing against the pentacle, it really is a person is a pentacle, the spirit of that person. And of course, we correspond with all the elements, or all the elements are within our makeup, so to speak.
Right, which would really go back to the whole thing I equate. And I'm not trying to say I'm right. What I'm saying is pentacles. Well, you guys will see that I held up a jar of coins in the introductory image of this video, because in some people call pentacles, some people call them a suit of coins. And so when you go back to that, you reap what you sow, being that really what you're trying to say, I think, is that we are our own pentacle, yes. Which is the first time I ever heard that, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Okay, so let's go back to making sure that we cover all the metaphysical correspondences of the Suit of Pentacles. And so when we take a look at the Suit of Pentacles symbolism, its meaning, it's really important when you're reading to understand a base of what the elements and the cardinal directions and, all that kind of thing. And then we'll get into the upright and reversed meaning of the Suit of Pentacles in just a second. But so what element is associated with the Suit of Pentacles?
Earth.
Earth. Okay. And with that element, what kind of energy then or symbolism does Earth bring to the Suit of Pentacles? Now, we've already mentioned you reap what you sow, but it's so much more than that.
Sure. Fertility, abundance, growth, stability, especially in emotional relationships, the physical realm, everything to do with the physical realm, tangible things. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to, mental thoughts or ideas, but it really, there's an emphasis on the physical realm. It's also, I look at it as the most mature kind of element, because you think about earth, its growth, nurturing, it nourishes you. So self-nourishment, nourishment of the soul. And because you think about coins, what you value, or the value of something. It's not just, money in abundance. It's also what's important to you, morally, ethically, emotionally.
So, it's interesting when we talk about earth. I did a reading the other day, and I was using, the lady specifically wanted me specifically to do a reading with the Arcana tarot because she bought the deck, right? And man, there were a lot of pentacles in there, a lot. And when I kept looking at the pictures on the cards, the animals, my deck is all about animals. It's about integrating spirit, totem, and power animals in with the tarot symbolism and kind of how they all work together to give you the clarity or the, whatever it is that you're needing, spiritual growth, self-reflection, divination, whatever. And I kept seeing each animal, because through the Suit of Pentacles, there are animals from all over the world. And I kept seeing the landscapes of those animals. So when I read and I pull for the Suit of Pentacles, if I'm seeing like a Saharan desert, that gives me a clue as to the earth that this client is working with. Let's be honest here. What grows in the Saharan desert, right? Mm-hmm. If I see fields that have a lot of, fruit in them, I know I'm dealing with one kind of thing. If I see, at one time I was like, I'm looking at the card, and because I'm from the South, I know what tobacco fields and cotton fields look like, right? And I know what watermelon fields look like, and cornfield. Well, everybody should know what a cornfield looks like, but squash and all that kind of thing, farming communities. But man, I just kept looking at that field and looking at that field, and it wasn't in the picture, but it was in my intuition. And I said to this gal, I said, listen, are you having problems with your lungs? And she said, yes, that's why I wanted a reading. I was just diagnosed with lung cancer. Mm-hmm. Well, how I knew that was in the card, when the pentacle showed up, and it was the 5, I saw a tobacco field. And I knew she'd been a smoker. And sure enough, she'd just been diagnosed with lung cancer. Sure. So the other thing that I encourage people to know when they're doing intuitive tarot reading, or if they will allow themselves to do intuitive tarot reading, is because pentacles can mean coins, it can, I think, mean a subtle, well, maybe even a huge difference in whether they're seeing a pentacle or are they seeing a coin? And if so, is that coin from another country? How much is that coin? Is it a 50-cent piece? Is it a $1 piece? Is it a penny? I saw one time, a card I was doing for a reading for a gal, and man, I just couldn't stop. And I want to say it was I'm pretty sure it was a 10 of Pentacles. Mm-hmm. And all I could see on the card were pennies everywhere. So I looked at her and I said, have you been seeing a lot of pennies lately and thinking that they were signs from somebody who crossed over? She goes, oh my God. And of course she started crying because I'm the crying psychic. And so, yeah, I don't know how she thought she was going to get there in a tarot reading. What she really wanted was a mediumship reading, and she didn't know it. But her mom had passed away at a very young age when she was young, and she just had been desperate all this time to hear from her mom. And so that's how it kind of metamorphosized for me. And just one other thing I want to say about the earth connection to the Suit of Pentacles is that, we can have earth in a lot of different places. We can have a terrarium in our house. Mm-hmm. We can have potted plants in our house. We can, I know people that carry little vials of earth from places they've been that are very sacred, like sacred sites, like, but I I don't know how I forgot it, because when I went to Stonehenge in England 2 years ago, it was my intent to take a small jar and pick up some of the earth and take it with me. Of course, you know, I totally forgot to do that, but earth can mean a lot of things, and you can use it in a lot of ways to support you for whatever it is that you need supporting with. So anyway, okay. So, all right. So we know that the element associated with the Suit of Pentacles is earth. And so that makes the cardinal, what cardinal direction is associated with the Suit of Pentacles?
North. North.
Okay.
Which, of course, leaves people wondering, if you've got 4 suits, where does that 5th point in the pentacle associate with? And I feel that it's very much associated with the spirit, or what happens between death and rebirth, which is interesting, because if you think about the major arcana and you've got the Fool in the beginning of those 22 cards, the World at the end of those 22 cards, and the Fool can show up anywhere in those cards. We talked about that in another video. If you go and you make a full circle, which is really what the Fool does, you start one question, you start another, and you start another, you start another. The pentacle, the 5th point on that pentacle, will represent the point between the Fool and the World when you create that circle, before you start the new quest and as you finish the old one. So it's really transitioning into a new, it's almost like outside of time, really. It's kind of transitioning into the newness of something. It's an ending, but it's a beginning. Just like you think you reap what you sow. The Reaper image, or the Grim Reaper holding that, what do you call that? I can't think of it. The little, you know, the little, yeah.
The scythe.
Yeah.
The scythe.
Yeah. Thank you. I was going to say sickle. You know what I'm talking about. The sickle's actually shorter, I think, right? Yeah. And this, yeah, it's kind of similar, but it's shorter. Reaping what you sow, cutting something down, but then at the same time allowing for regrowth. So it's actually the transition from beginning to end. So it would represent, if you believe in reincarnation, that period between that transition from death to rebirth.
Yep. Because I had that question. Well, I even asked you that question. It's always confused me a little bit when reading, because to me, pentacles, since they're about fertility and abundance and growth, it would surely be represented by spring, or, you know, even summer, or even fall. And so having it in the north, man, that really blew my mind for a while as a reader. I had to really wrap my head around that. So that means then,
well, really reaping what you've already sown before. You're planting the seeds and reaping it now. That's why, you know, you think about in ancient times, you had to prepare for the winter. And I mean, really prepare, not like go grocery shopping and stock up your cupboards, but you would have to hunt and store your food. And, you know, either you did what you had to do, or you starved to death, and you know, things got brutal. So this is very much reaping what you sow later on. And then the winter month is planning ahead for the next season.
Right, exactly. And it wasn't until somebody explained it to me very much like what you did, I was like, oh, I get it. And then, you know, because when people, I don't know, again, I go back to this phrase, reaping what you sow. I over the years, you know, at this point, I've probably read 40,000 people, and I know you've read more than I have, because you work for one of the services and have done for many years. And you guys just, man, you read and you read and you read and you read. But I have found that people are very loath to take you reap what you sow as much to heart as they might, which I very much equate to the Judgment card about, are you really willing to take a look at yourself and, you know, take a step back and look at yourself honestly, you know, in an earnest, honest, okay, these things have not been working. And I think we all find that what hasn't worked generally tends to not work and not work over and over again until we get it straight inside of ourselves. And Pentacles, I think, is an awful lot like that. But I tend to see the sunny side of life with Pentacles, in that if it's upright, it's a clue that, okay, they're moving to a time that what they sow is going to be a much richer crop than what it has been in the past, in whatever instance we're talking about, romance, finances. And you know, we live in such a throwaway society I find that when it comes to jobs and relationships, even in some ways money, people haven't learned how, not even just how to plan ahead. They just always feel like, well, if this doesn't work or this gets broken, it's okay, I'll go get another one. And then they,
society.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so that gives Pentacles the additional meaning of, well, what kind of stock do you really want to have on your internal shelves or even your physical shelves? You know, listen, call it what you will. I mean, my God, there's got to be 1.5 million memes out there about the toilet paper shortage during the coronavirus pandemic, right? Because we're filming this, you know, right in the middle of all of that. And I know everybody made a joke out of it. And in some ways it was a joke, right? Like, of all the things, toilet paper, really, you know, Southerners, man, we were stocking up on food, right? We were like, we'll get leaves, we'll get newspaper, you know, Girl Scouts, right? We knew what to do. You know, we were the first ones to go, okay, well, everybody's buying toilet paper, we'll just go buy paper towels. And so, you know, that always made me laugh. But what it did tell me was how many people in our country, now I don't think it probably was like this in other countries, but, you know, I remember my mom and my grandma's stories of having to stand in line for literally like one piece of meat to get them through a week or a month or whatever, and having to dig potatoes out of the dirt to, you know, have food or whatever. And I think a lot of people in this country don't remember what it's like, and they don't understand just how fragile life or the economy or our structures, our systems really are, because all it took was a few months to take lots of things down. Like, it's interesting that we're talking about coin at this time, because we're having a national shortage of change. Theoretically, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there that may or may not be true. I don't ever say what I believe in, because today I believe, and tomorrow when I know more, I know differently and I believe differently. But I was in Publix the other day. There's an aluminum shortage. So it looks like wartime on the shelves. There are very few cans of things, anything that has aluminum, because the manufacturers are like, there's such a shortage. They're sticking to their top 3 to 5 best sellers and not producing the rest for the now. So Pentacles, I think, while I love to give them the, oh, hurrah, we've got Pentacles, it could go better for you if you're reading for yourself or your client or both, if you take a step back and really take a deeper look, especially because I love how you equate the suits to a maturation process. And can you speak to that, Dana? Can you tell us that in order of less mature and why to most mature and why?
I look at the 4 suits as a method of growth for anyone. So the wands represent youthfulness, sometimes egocentricity, a very creative, youthful mind. And then we go into cups, which represents someone who matures a little bit, you know, emotionally. It's all about love and emotion. So they're deeper and emotional, a little bit more expressive. And then we go to swords, which I think about, you know, strife, stress, people who have gone through turmoil or, you know, trials by fire and have matured through that process. It's about finding your self-truth and being true to the self, because you cut away what doesn't serve you, leaving only what is. And then we've got the Pentacles, which is the most mature process. You reach maturity. The Pentacle representing bringing all of those aspects together, because each point of the star of the Pentacle represents the suits before it. So bringing all those suits together into a emotionally mature process. And the court cards really are particularly representative of that. You've got the page, the knight, the queen, and the king in each suit. So the pages are the most youthful of all the suits. And then you've got the knight, which shows movement or growth or the overcoming of obstacles. And if you notice that the Page of Swords is running, he's racing over obstacles, cutting away obstacles. But the Page of Pentacles is standing still in the Rider-Waite deck, because they're taking time to reflect before they make a move. They're not impetuous. They don't just dive right in. They're very reflective, thinking about what it is that they value before they make a move. Then you've got the Queen, which is, of course, you've got the Queen and King, which are the balance between the masculine and feminine elements, or yin and yang energies, or yin and yang energies, as some people say. It's a balance between the passive and the taking action. And ultimately, the King of Pentacles represents finding a euphoria or great contentment in every sense, emotionally, physically, sexually, psychologically, in every area. Intellect, your will, your dreams and visions, stabilizing relationships, and bringing that all together so that you can put the main pillars of whatever it is you're focusing on away, because they're stable. And you can just focus on enjoying the outcome of what it is, whether it's a relationship, or a project, or whatever that's gone through that maturation process.
Right. So then, okay, so what element is associated with the Suit of Swords? We know that's Earth. What cardinal direction is associated with the Suit of, or not Swords, Pentacles, excuse me. And then what cardinal direction is associated with the Suit of Pentacles? We know that is North. And what season is associated with the Suit of Pentacles? We know that's winter. Okay. So now let's move into the upright and reversed meanings of the Suit of Pentacles. So generally speaking, overall, when you see Pentacles upright in a tarot card reading, that clues you to what?
Generally speaking, and I mean loosely because it depends on the card you're looking at and the cards around it. Your fertility, your abundance, your work, career, the things you emotionally value. And for the most part, either in a positive sense or something that's being challenged, but it's a challenge that leads to a greater good. It's something that you may have to go through to get to a certain point. But it's a little bit more powerful than being in reverse. Reverse is like looking at loss, because you imagine the coins falling out of the card. So, it's kind of like putting money in a piggy bank and it falls through the hole. You're not getting anywhere. So the energy is subdued. However, there are some cards that are reversed, and they're actually better when they're reversed than if they're upright. And we'll get into that when we explore the cards. But for the most part, upright, what you value and what you're investing in, what you might have to go through and how you get through it. And then reverse, what you may be losing or missing out on. What you've been investing in and maybe erroneously investing in, and how you may be able to improve that.
Okay. And so what qualities would you associate with the Suit of Pentacles, meaning maybe personality qualities, something that would give you an idea of the headspace of the client? Give me some thoughts on that, especially if you see a lot of pentacles in a reading. Like if you flip 10 cards, your famous as above, so below spread, your signature spread. And then the signature spread you were so gracious to create for the Arc, which is the Father Sky, Mother Earth spread. What would you kind of know about a client or the situation?
A lot of pentacles. I would say that they've reached a certain level of emotional maturity. But just because they've reached that level of emotional maturity, it doesn't mean that's the end of their growth. So they can get stuck in a cycle where they think, okay, I've done it all. I've endured it all. This is it. That's the end. I don't have to do anything else. They get stuck in a rut that way. And if you see a lot of coins, depending on the position of the coins and the card, it can mean that they're either fixed in place and there's more to learn and they're not doing it. They need to question what their value, or it can mean that they really overcome blocks to that fixed mindset and they're critically thinking about what they value. So sometimes it can represent stubbornness, being stuck in a rut, especially if you look at like the King of Pentacles and that Taurian type temperament that I know so well, being stubborn, being fixed in place, to the point where you get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
Or, it's the cards in reverse, getting out of that mindset, breaking free from that stuck in place kind of rut and letting things kind of flow. It's almost like an emotional release, I think, an emotional clearing out toxic emotions that have fixed you there in the first place. But the stubbornness, inertia. You look at the Queen of Pentacles, someone who sets boundaries, knows their boundaries, a co-creator with the universe for their reality. And someone who wants an abundance. They know what they want. They know what they want and they get it, basically. And they choose who enters their reality and who doesn't. It's not that, people, we encounter them every day, but we don't have to let them into our worlds or into our headspace. So really forces to be reckoned with, but people who are pretty much mature in a sense, but that doesn't mean they stop growing.
Yep. And what's interesting is you and I did a reading. It was our first time doing it. The other day, you and I did a tag team reading for a client. And it was very cool because, I didn't use cards. I just, I went into my psychic, shamanic journeying thing. And it was hilarious because I would say something to a client. I would watch Dana look at her cards and go, yup. And then she would show the client the card that exemplified exactly what I had just told the client psychically, right? And this went on we did a really long reading for her, and it was like an hour and a half. It was just, man, it was awesome. We've got to do more of those. Yeah. And so one of the things that I look at when I am flipping cards for somebody is I look at the numerology of the card. Yes. So, if it's a 10, if it's a king, if it's a 1, my mind instantly, just because I've been doing this for so long, I've kind of got like this, tarot card symbolism and meaning checklist in my head where I just go down the season, the element, the color, the this, the that, the whatever, right? And so then I always take a look at the number of the card. And numerology, numbers are hard for me. I'm just not a math person, but numerology makes a lot of sense to me. So I would really encourage you guys to study up on at least numerology to the extent of, well, this number has this meaning and this number has this meaning and this number has this meaning. But also never forget your color association. Now that can mean a couple of different things. So colors that winter and, earth is associated with all kinds of colors because it's a seasonal kind of thing. But when you know that north and winter are associated with pentacles, you're gonna, depending on what part of the world you're in and what, generally though speaking, it's going to be whites and grays and blacks and colors that are very muted. Whereas in spring, a green would be very lush and very bright and whatever. During winter, it may not be that. You would see a lot of browns and, that kind of thing. And even water, just because there are so many usually, the sun isn't as bright or it's filtering through cloud cover or whatever. Water hues can even turn from the brightest of blues to the grays and the silvers, that kind of thing. But I
don't forget about purple because you've got winter, right? And winter associated with quote unquote death, eventually. Also nobility, but you've got the King of Pentacles got grapes all over his gown. Right. That euphoria, that heady wine feeling, that ecstasy.
Yep, exactly. Well, and I forgot about black, because you definitely have shorter days during the winter, and that, you spend a little more, well, actually a lot more of your time in darkness than you would in spring or summer or even fall. But also, it really just depends on what deck you're using, right? So our tarot card meetings, tarot card reading videos that we're doing, we're basing them on, where's my box? Well, it's the Rider-Waite system of cards, right? Mm-hmm. And they look like, well, I use the Radiant Rider-Waite. Hold on, here we go. So there's the Ace of Pentacles. And, that card is a pretty, bright, peppy looking card. But you might be drawn to the dark, dark, dark green at the bottom of the hedge. You might be drawn to the white color, which would make a lot of sense because that would denote ether or spirit. So I really encourage, but I teach tarot, I teach intuitive tarot, straight up intuitive tarot. and I leave all the symbolism. Not, it's not that I don't teach it. It's just that that's something that it takes time to learn, and that it becomes very personal over time. The relationship that you create with your cards and with the suits and this and that. It's like with the animals in my deck. You know, bears are definitely, I equate them, well, holy crap. I can't believe it's sitting right here. Oh, it's sitting right on top of the deck. That's crazy. Because I forgot we were doing pentacles to y'all today. I was ready to move into like the kings and the queens and all that. And Dana was like, we haven't finished the minor arcana. I was like, so in my deck, the bear is the Queen of Pentacles. And if you notice here, she's here with her offspring, and you can see one of them, but you've got to look real closely to see the second one. And so it can be about that which is hidden in the darkness. And that's the same as reaping what you sow with crops. You know, what's going on underground during the winter when it's dark? And what is Mother Earth planning with everything that she's helping keep safe in her womb during the dark times? Go ahead.
What did you not see when you were planting those seeds that you are now going to reap? What you did not think about prior, kind of like the watch what you wish for element. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so you might be surprised or not that when you look at the cards, sometimes, you know, probably because I was in the entertainment business forever, when I look at the cards, like especially, you know, this is always going to be the movie Ben-Hur to me, always, or Gladiator. It's always going to be one of those two movies. That's what it's going to be, period. I say that now. 20 years from now, I might have a different experience. When I take a look at the Fool card, I'm reminded of every Anthony Michael Hall movie from the 80s, because he was the ultimate fool in my mind, right? He just was the ultimate fool. And, you know, don't be surprised if it reminds you of a family member, or if the card reminds you of a pet. Even if you're not using an animal deck, it might, you know, there are so many things that Spirit will work with you with to create your own language, to create your own library of symbolism, so that you're not just memorizing the traditional meanings that somebody once upon a time wrote for the Rider-Waite deck, and then just regurgitating that back to clients, because that will never, ever, 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 yes, I did make that declarative statement. It will never give them as in-depth or accurate a reading as they could have if you would study your symbolism and also be open to intuition. Now, when Dana reads, you know, she always says, you know, I'm not necessarily a psychic. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. And I always say, well, I'm not really a tarot reader. I read tarot. The readings are very solid, but I don't consider myself like, you know, I certainly am not a master, but I would say that I'm, you know, I do okay. Let's just put it that way. Right. But if I was going to be like the judgment card, I was going to be really honest and authentic with myself. Yeah, I'm a damn good tarot reader. But I believe that's because Spirit orchestrates, and our higher selves orchestrate the right cards falling for the right person at the right time on the right day. And I believe in that. I'm a believer. I've watched it thousands and thousands and thousands of times in my own readings, right? Much less the readings that I get from really awesome readers like Dana. And so at that point, it does make our jobs a little bit easier, because we just kind of have to sit back and trust the process. And by golly, it unfolds every single time just as it should, right? So I do want to go back and touch about the Vitruvian Man just for a second, because and I hope this is not sounding preachy or teachy, because I really don't mean it to be like that. But I have been noticing in the last maybe 5 years, funny, right? Five points on a pentacle or a pentagram. And I really have been noticing Woo, doggies. People do not want to take responsibility for themselves. I meant to say their decisions, their actions. And it is getting more and more and more almost every time I read. When, in my estimation, it should be going just the opposite way, because I believe history is repeating itself in many ways. And we're coming to a time where people are going to have to learn to be more self-reliant, or they are going to be SOL. In the South, we call that shit out of luck, y'all. So I wonder how you handle that when you have a client who sometimes a reading that's coming up, everybody wants to know, is this going to happen and when is it going to happen? Mm-hmm. They don't want to know, but not everybody, right? Like, I'm so fortunate to have a bevy of just unbelievably self-reflective, spiritually awakened, or are on their path to self-discovery, on the path to spiritual awakening. Man, they want to know the whys. But, you get some clients, they don't want to hear it. They just want to hear, when is it happening and how is it happening? They don't want to hear anything they can do to help orchestrate this, that, or the other, or the things that they have to take a look at that are causing the very problems that they're having a problem with, right? Like moving energetic blocks, or, we haven't touched a lot about this. We'll do a couple of videos about chakras and the tarot, because what you can know about somebody in every single solitary chakra, especially their root chakra, that's some scary stuff right there. Not really. It's not scary, occulty, boogity, not like the occult is like that. It's the assignment that people give it. But tarot can tell you a lot about people's systems, their beliefs, their disbeliefs, the things that they would never, ever, they think they're the only ones in the whole world that knows. Y'all, spirit always knows. And if you come to somebody like me or Dana, we're the next to know. Like there's you that knows, spirit knows way ahead of you do. When you do, your higher self knows. And then if you come to somebody like me and Dana, we're the next to know. There's no such thing as secrets. No, there's no such thing. Your energetic pattern will tell every one of your dang secrets. So don't think you have any. But my question is because we're talking about pentacles, and pentacles is so much about the maturation and the spiritual progression, and you're making yourself a better person so you can make better choices, bringing it kind of all together. How do you work with someone like that, where you look at a spread and you're like, this is not nearly as predictive as this, I know this client wants. It's really more about the client. How do you handle that?
Well, I try to give them exactly what I'm seeing. And if they close themselves off to the message, I know they're not ready for it. They're just not ready to look at it. They're not ready to embrace it. They're just, even if I give it to them, they're not going to do anything with it. I try to plant the seed. They don't take the seed. There's nothing I can really do about it. Except
right here. Go ahead. And I want to come back to that for a minute.
I try to plant the seed, and hopefully later, they'll reflect on what was said and come to a realization of it. But, I try to treat it gently. I try to understand that they're either in a position in their life and they're just not ready, or maybe it's just not time yet for them to embrace the message. It's not always easy. And they often demand, when they're starting to demand, I want 100% guarantee that this is going to happen, that this is going to happen at a certain time. I don't give 100% guarantees. That would be absolutely unethical to do, because I have no way of knowing free will. Well, it's not that I don't know, but I do have no ways of knowing whether you're free will and you're going to do something that's going to upset timelines, and then it's going to change the whole picture before we speak again. If we ever speak again, I can't do that. I'll tell you that I'm very confident in my readings, but I'll never give you 100%. That's just, refuse.
I learned, and speaking of different timelines, and that would get us into dimension jumping and all that kind of thing, which is a whole different series of videos. But I learned in a remote viewing class that I took with Joseph McMoneagle at the Monroe Institute changed my world, my life, my perspective, my everything as a reader. I'm telling you, it was crazy. I don't ever give 100% guarantees either, because up until that class, I had never considered that I might be jumping timelines or dimension jumping when I was reading, because I had never set the intention of, in this lifetime, at this moment, where we are now, not another possible outcome, not another possible different dimensions, which is going to throw a lot of you that are watching this video way off, because they're going to be like, oh, they're those people. But if you would be open to hearing my stories, true psychic stories, or a myriad, thousands and thousands of other people who get to kind of that place, not that level, but that place as a reader, you might think very, very differently. And while I don't give those guarantees, I have watched my own predictions because I hate doing predictions. There's nothing I like less when a client is like, I want a prediction about this or that. Now, if it's about a job or whatever, okay. But if it's about something different, like, say I worked on a missing persons case this week. Mm-hmm. Man, they found the guy in exactly the environment, in exactly where I said he would be, but I couldn't tell them where that was. I couldn't tell them the latitude and longitude. And then at one point, I was convinced this guy was miles away. He wasn't miles away, but who was miles away were his children. And because because the search and rescue dogs had dropped his scent where he was, but picked his scent up 8 miles away in a different town, they had moved the search and rescue headquarters to that town. And I picked up on it so clearly, I even described a round building with a coffee shop right across the street from it. No shit. That guy was nowhere near there. Now, that's not to say that in the 4.5 days the guy was missing, that he had hitched a ride to that town and then went back to the other town. Highly unlikely, because he's got brain cancer. Okay, highly unlikely. And like that, his behavior gives the appearance of highly advanced dementia. I don't think he was either physically healthy enough or mentally healthy enough to hitch a ride and then know where to go back to. But thank you for sharing about how you work with those people, because I tend to be very upfront, and I wish that more readers would do that, because so many readers will cloak what messages they're picking up because they don't want to offend. They want to keep the client and their money coming back. They're so afraid they'll be wrong that they don't give information that is so crucial to somebody. With this guy, I kept saying, he's in water, and he keeps sleeping on a pile of leaves. He's where a big pile of leaves is, and he's in water. And are there caves near there? Because I feel like he's either in a cave or near a cave, or like an enormous culvert. Like we have culverts in Florida because we have a lot of flooding, right? Because our water table is so high usually, but our culverts are not like this. I'm like, this is like a cave. And I said, is there any place you can think of like that? No. And then sure enough, they found the guy half in and half out of water on a cave. And well, the cave was an enormous culvert. He was literally like 6 feet away from this culvert. And I kept saying, I see these trees, these tall trees. He's kind of hidden by these trees, but well, they were 10-foot tall cattails. I didn't know cattails could be 10 foot tall. And a bunch of the cattails were over, and there was a bed of leaves right there. I mean, you could see the picture. I don't want to mention the name or anything because it's in the news, but sure enough, he was right there. But I couldn't give them the latitude and longitude. Now, there are remote viewers who can do that. I've never been able to get to that point ever. Not that I can't give so much other information, but again, it's my head trip with numbers. This might seem like it's way off the beaten path about tarot, but it's not, because I have flipped tarot. I worked on a murder case a few years ago. I used my cards. There were times when I needed my cards, and oh yes, I flipped them, and oh yes, it was very helpful in me giving information that ultimately helped the police find, sadly, all the different body parts of this young lady. It was horrible. She was 5 months pregnant and murdered, and it was just horrible. It was so horrible. If you're watching this and you're a beginner, or this series of videos, or just this video, if you're watching this and you're even a sage or a master reader, there's always something left to learn, and there's always something to consider that you never considered before. And when you talk about planting the seed, where all of this dovetails back to is, I trust that even when a client is resistant, because I've had some people leave my readings pretty damn pissed.
Oh yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
And I'm not as flippant as all that. I don't ever want anybody to leave feeling discouraged. But those are the only people that leave discouraged are the people that want you to tell them what they want to hear.
Yes.
And there is not enough money in the world for you to pay Bernadette King to do that. That is an insult to spirit. It is an insult to my sacred profession and my sacred contract. And guess what? It's not good for you either. Yeah. So I don't engage in all of that, although lots and lots of readers do. And that's a subject for another video. But you can be very surprised, I think, at what an adept, and I truly mean adept, reading can do for somebody when you trust that spirit, even if they leave you pissed. I've had people circle back 2 years around and go, could I come get a reading from you? And I'll say, no, because you were a jackass the last time you were in my office. I know, and I apologize, but everything you said, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we'll try it again. And they're different people, just wildly different people. Now, those are extreme cases, but I do trust spirit to send the information that that person needs at that time, even if they want to hear. And listen, we've all been through that, right? Like, my famous thing is my sister. She's my North Star, right? So, I mean, my whole life, my sister has told me things, and I've been like, and damn if 6 months later, it's not that. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right. Well, I think we have hopefully given you guys a really good insight and lots of different ways to look at the Suit of Pentacles, how to use it in a reading, how to interpret the messages, you know, all of the different, you know, the elements and the colors and the numerology and the seasons and all of those kinds of things that, you know, go into that. We've explained what a pentacle is. So I hope this has been very helpful to you. We really thank you for joining us and watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Dana and I do try to answer as many questions as we can get to. And thank you, Dana, as always, for joining. I learn something every time I work with you. So really, these videos are just for me because it's all about, right? So, but, you know, also one more thing, you know, check out Dana's books. You'll see her Amazon links below. You'll see a link below. If you don't have the Arcana Tarot and Oracle deck yet, if you care anything about working with animal energy, I really encourage you to buy it. It is the most comprehensive deck on the market. There are 100 animals in the main deck. There are 49 other animals available in the add-on cards. And y'all, look at this guidebook. It is 372 pages of animal information. It's, okay, that's funny. I just randomly turned to the King of Pentacles. That's how that works.
Synchronicity.
Yeah, it's all color, and for the animal, you'll find the tarot card meaning on one side. You'll find the meaning of the animal as the spirit, totem, and power animal on the other side. There are chapters in here about colors and directions and numerology and seasons and all of that kind of thing. It is the most comprehensive again, animal, anything on the market. And one other thing I want to say, and I know this sounds like a plug, but I just, if you guys could read the emails and the Facebook PMs I get about all the magical things that are happening for people when they're using these, and not just, you don't have to use them for tarot card readings, because if you notice, like here with the Nautilus with the Ace of Cups, it just reads that it's the Ace of Cups, and you'll see water in it, but it's not an overtly cups card. If you just want to use them for shamanism, shamanistic healing, shamanistic journeying, shamanic journeying, or you just want to use them as plain old oracle cards or inspirational or motivational, you'll notice that the cards use images of real animals.
I gotta add, they're great for kids. My grandson loves them. Learning about animals.
Yep.
Loves them.
Mm-hmm. And the variety of animals, I mean, that's why it's a 100-card deck. There are 78 tarot cards and then 22 bonus cards or oracle cards. And then, again, the other 49 cards that you can get in the expansion packs. There's only one animal that is repeated, and that it's owls. There are 2 cards with owls on them. But other than that, you're looking at 148 different animals. That's a lot for you to be able to work with. And, man, the messages these animals are bringing to people, and the healing and the insight and the development and spiritual growth, it's crazy, y'all. So thank you so much for joining us. And you can find links to all the articles below about the cardinal directions and the colors and this and that, so you can get more information. We thank you so much. And what's the most important thing for everybody out there? To stay wild. All right. Take care, you guys.
Bye-bye.